All right, the time has come. Finally, we are here now to talk about Scrum. What is Scrum? Well, Scrum is basically an agile process. It's been hugely adopted by the software field, but it is actually a process that can be used for all sorts of projects, but in particular, it is most excellent for projects which are either sort of have ill-defined requirements, as in we really don't know exactly what we're going to do and we need to figure it out as we go along the way, or processes or projects that really need to be adaptive and be able to change as needed. And you could definitely envision this. Let's say you're working for a startup, a new company, and the product environment is changing rapidly, especially as you learn new things as you build the software, and you need to be able to change and adapt. Scrum works excellent there as well. Now, there are many other agile approaches to software development. We have extreme programming. We could use a Kanban process. So there are many different ways to do it. Scrum is widely adopted, and it really fits well within the MSci 342 course. And I actually think it's one of the best agile methods to start off with learning. And once you master Scrum, then you're sort of open to the agile way of doing things. And then you can consider other things such as Kanban and certainly extreme programming. All right, so what is it that makes Scrum so special and makes it work so well? All right, so there's a lot to it. I really think Scrum has some unique aspects to it. Now, we will find these in a lot of the agile methods in different ways and forms. But let's just talk from now on about Scrum. So one of the big things that Scrum has is this idea basically of continual improvement. And I would actually look at this as this is really an optimization approach. The idea being that we're going to work to optimize our product, as in making the product better, able to fit the requirements, but we're also going to be continually optimizing and improving our team's process. So it does this through inspection and adaptation. And the key point is that it has these iterations, and we've talked about iterations as being critical to helping us learn what really a customer wants. And so this is where these iterations come in, is via the Scrum process. Now each iteration, and in Scrum, these are called sprints. So each iteration allows the team to improve not only the product, but also their own process. And we'll talk about the tools that Scrum offers for teams to actually make this happen. But this is really one of the big things that is at the heart of it, and was one of the driving forces between its design, was to come up with a way to keep, let's inspect what's going on. Now let's adapt and change and improve so that we are able to get to our goal in an efficient manner while minimizing waste. And I think this fits really nicely within the management engineering framework. All right, so that's the first part. Now, the second one of these things is, and this is a really big one, is that in Scrum, no one is in charge of the team. Now, we might talk about a manager, and we have these people on the team who report to the manager, but the manager is not going to be telling people what to do in Scrum. So if the manager is on the Scrum team, The manager is just another team member, or might be the Scrum Master, but unlikely to be the Scrum Master. Much more likely, the team manager is not on the team. The team is on their own, and the team is really really working together. And indeed, what we like to talk about is that the team is self-organized. Now, it's self-organized in a notion that the team manages themselves, they follow processes, they act as professionals. This is not self-organization of chaos. This is not all hands for themselves and we're just doing stuff. This is not craziness. This is, we all agree to follow a process, and we're all professionals. We're really competent and skilled, and we're all going to work together, and we're self-organized. We don't need a manager to tell us what to do. We will be able to manage ourselves to get our work done following our process, and we'll be much more successful than if we were having a person in charge to actually tell us what to do. So that's a really big shift for a lot of people. And in fact, I would say for a lot of students in MSci 342, this is something where they actually they find it a little bit hard, and like, why isn't someone telling me what to do? What I will do as your manager is I'll tell you to follow the Scrum process, all right? But I'm not going to assign you tasks. I'm not going to tell you to write this piece of software or that piece of software. You're going to, as a team, be in charge of yourselves. Now, unlike a lot of group work you do where you're in charge of yourselves, you're going to have a process to follow, and that gives a lot of security and, I don't know, guidance to how things go. But it is a skill to develop, this notion that no one tells you what to do. Now, the team does divide itself up traditionally to have some roles for the people who are on it. But remember, no one is in charge. One of the traditional roles is a notion of a product owner. The product owner's job is to determine the priority of work, and as well the acceptance criteria. So this is, what will it mean for the client to be satisfied for that work to be done? Now, typically the product owner is much more sort of a business person. And I'll also say that I really think these people make a ton of sense when we're talking about that we've got lots of customers, lots of clients. Now, in 342, we have a single client, a single customer, and we're not actually going to utilize the notion of a product owner for our teams. So no one on an MSci 342 Scrum team is the product owner. The team takes on these responsibilities, the team together. It's not a big team. You're all actively involved. You'll be able to determine what the priority of the work is. Okay. Another major role typical to Scrum teams is the Scrum Master. And again, while this sounds like this person's in charge, they are not in charge. I would view master here as meaning they have mastered Scrum. They know Scrum in and out. It's something they live and they breathe, and you can go get certified as a Scrum Master and so forth and so on. It's not that I'm in charge and I'm telling you what to do. It's I'm your Scrum expert, and the Scrum Master helps the team stay on process. So they're there to guide the team through Scrum and make sure that, remind the team to keep following the proper Scrum process. So again, they are not a manager. nor are they the lead of the team. And if the Scrum Master behaves that way, they have not mastered Scrum. That's not their job. They're not to be doing it. Now, they do typically as well, they will go and help clear roadblocks. So if something is impeding the progress of the team, the Scrum Master is often the person who will go out there and try to deal, especially interfacing with the product owner and the rest of the company, eliminate things that are slowing the team down or causing the team problems. The Scrum Master will take on that. Now in 342, we're not going to have any Scrum Masters either. We're all learning Scrum in 342. No one has mastered it yet. And what we want everyone on the team to do is to take on the notion of, yes, I'm going to politely remind my team that this is the process. We need to, well, we seem to be off process. We're not doing it as expected. We're going to get back to doing things as they are expected. All right. All right, just a second. Wonderful. Oh, good. All right. So what do we have here? Next, so we've got the roles, we've got product owner, we've got Scrum Master, again, not on 342, but what everyone is in 342 is a team member. Sometimes these are called developers, not necessarily software developers, but they're the developers. The team members, so these are basically everyone who's not a Scrum Master and a product owner. They have a job. They estimate size of work to do. So this is a really important concept, that the people doing the work are the ones who say how long, effectively how much work there is to do. It's not up to a manager to say this is something that can get done in a day. The team who is going to be doing the work and who are experts and professionals, they make the estimates. And then they commit basically to getting work done. So they become really good at being able to estimate what the size of work is. They do the work. And that's a really important thing. People who do the work should be the people estimating the size of the work. Team members always work to keep busy. They don't want to be idle. And in particular, let's stress this. A team member does not block or stop their own or others' work. Again, we go back to that one of those team behaviors rules, the first one. We're working to maximize the output of the team. So a team member is very conscious. I'm not here to sit around myself and not do anything. I'm not going to make excuses. I'm not going to say, oh, I'm waiting on someone else to do work. No, we don't do that in Scrum. These are professionals. Professionals are always looking to find what can they do next. And in fact, and they work very hard so that they don't actually cause issues to block other people and cause problems. Now, another aspect of a team member that's it's actually quite unique to Scrum is that team members are considered able to contribute to all parts of the product development and so they're not specialists. They don't do things don't divide work by, you might think about the front end versus the back end, etc. Okay? In sort of modern parlance terms, we would say, if we're talking about software, these people are full stack developers. So a full stack developer, yeah, easily. I can work on the HTML, the CSS. Sure, I can code up our models. I can design our database. I can do it all. Like, I know how, and the nice thing is that through going through MSci 245 and what we'll continue to teach you here in 342, you are all full stack developers. So I don't want to have anyone in this course who's like, no, I really want to focus on the back end, and oh, I really want to focus on the front end. That is not the way we divide work up, okay? So do not do that. What I really dislike is seeing situations where I'll find out at the team evaluations later in the term, oh, so-and-so often wasn't doing something because they would only work on this part of the product. Or we got really stuck because so-and-so was the only person who knew how everything in the database was set up. And so when they got sick, we weren't able to make much progress. That's ridiculous. Everyone needs to know how everything is working in this product. Everyone needs to know how to work from the front end to the back end. You guys know that, and you need to behave in that way. All right, no dividing up work. You are capable of doing it all. And this is actually part of the ethos of Scrum, is that, yeah, we all are capable and we can all contribute to any part of the product at any time, and we can pick up work from any part of the product at any time. And that's one of the things that allows the team to stay highly effective and keep going, especially even able to deal with, yeah, someone got sick. Well, that's not a problem. We take over the work that they were doing and so forth and so on. All right, so, all right, what else about Scrum? Well, decisions are made at the last responsible moment. Okay, now, the last responsible moment, it's a little strange terminology to use. What the idea being is look, it's not about procrastination. It's not about, oh, let's leave it till it's too late. It's now is the time to make this decision. If we made it earlier, we might have wasted effort by making the decision then and doing work associated to that decision. In other words, now we know we should make this decision, and now we'll proceed with the work that comes from that decision. So let's explain this a little bit more. The idea behind this idea is that it's aiming to minimize the wasted effort. So an example of this in particular is that we don't do design work for product features that we would never develop. So common to waterfall development, or people might say big planning upfront approaches or plan and document approaches, whatever you want to call them. The idea would be, well, we do all this planning and we do a ton of design work for the entire product as we envision it, then we'll get to work on building it. What often unfortunately happens is the moment you start building it, you go, oh, I didn't realize this, or I didn't think about that. And you realize that a ton of the work that you just did previously doesn't make any sense. Or eventually you go show it to the client and the client is like, I don't like it. And that changes, that decision, that feedback cascades, and you realize a ton of work that you plan to do is no longer makes any sense to do. So one of the things here is to avoid that phenomena, okay? And the other reason we delay our decisions until we need to make them is we're going to aim to be minimizing getting people who are blocked waiting on other people. We don't want people to have downtime. We want to be able to keep everyone, they're able to come into work every day and work. We don't want this whole notion of, yep, I've been waiting for Fred, I'm waiting for Harish, I'm waiting for Mary, whatever it is. We have a process in place so this doesn't happen, okay? And one of the ways is by delaying these decisions until they need to be made. So let's talk about how that actually happens in a bit more detail, since it is so important. All right, so let's look at the decision about what work to do. All right, so there's two big mechanisms in Scrum for deciding about the work. The first one is at the product level, and we talk about that the product has a product backlog. And this is a prioritized list of work to do on the product. All right, so it's at the product level. You could think of this as these are all of the stories that we would ever want to do on the product. And the product owner, or in 342's case, the team, has worked based upon feedback and understanding of the customer to decide what is the order that those stories should actually be delivered. Because we can't do them all at once. And we're not going to incrementally, we're not going to work a little bit on all of them slowly and eventually release a product. Our goal is to release the product in different phases, releases, where we get a sort of a minimal product out and then we add to it and improve it. So we prioritize what we think the customer needs, which stories should be done first in the backlog. And we basically are, the backlog, if you want to, could be ordered from the must-have to the good-to-have to the nice-to-have, and then we don't even bother to have in the backlog the things we'll never do. But that's basically what we've done, is we've ordered the stories there in our backlog, okay? And we don't have too much design work done on them. We understand the basics of them. We probably have started to, we will always have a good idea sort of what we mean by the must-have stories. But the highest priority, but everything else, it's just a story. We haven't done much work on defining what it is. It's there in the backlog, and when we get to it, then we start to work on it. All right, now, so we got this overall backlog of work. Then we also have our sprint backlog. And this is the work that's selected by the team, and it's selected from the highest priority items. So we pay attention to the backlog, product backlog, and select items from the top of the pile. And the amount of work selected is based upon what the team believes it's able to get done in a sprint. And as such, then, they commit to getting it done in the sprint. And it also forms the work necessary to achieve their sprint goal. And so the sprint goal encapsulates, this body of work that we're going to get, which is the highest priority stuff from the product log. This goal describes that. and we're committed to achieving this goal and get this work done. Now, we'll show you that Scrum teams do not just, oh, we're just going to cram a whole bunch of stuff in there and commit to it and work like crazy and kill ourselves. Everything in Scrum is designed around the idea of we're going to work for a really long time, years and years and years together as a team. And now the product might not take years, but we're as a team going to keep working for a long time. And we can't just keep going through cycles of massive team burnout, going on death marches, working super late nights, and oh, the boss is bringing in meals for us to work late and things, trying to meet our product deadlines and stuff. It's all about maintaining a sustainable pace. And so there is a process by which they choose enough work that it's a good amount of work, but it's work that they know from their professional ability to estimate work, and they understand how much work can they get done usually within a sprint, such that they pick a reasonable chunk of work, and then they feel like they can commit to actually getting that work done in that time. All right. So I'll make a note for myself. Just apologies about that. One of the things, though, so next is the team is left alone. Okay, and basically the team's focus is the sprint. And if a manager has any job, it's to make sure that the team is able to have their job be their sprint. So the team is not to be diverted off to do other things and, oh, could you please join me and help me fix this thing here and do this? The team is basically left alone. They get to focus on their sprint. They are not to have other responsibilities that take away from their ability to focus on the sprint. Likewise, there's no one on the team who's not engaged in that. So when they hold team meetings, it's not as though other people from the company show up and voice opinions and things. The team gets to stay focused. They are to not be disturbed in their work. Okay, so it's not like the VP of marketing shows up and sees how, shows up at their daily meeting and interrupts them and stuff like that. The team is really gets to focus and needs to be allowed to focus on their own. And you'll read in various books in the reading things about chickens versus pigs. All right, and so I'm not going to get into the details there. You can find the joke yourself. But these people are committed, but they also have to be allowed to be committed. Their estimates won't mean anything if they're being diverted to do other things. So it really is. The idea is to create a team that's really, really focused and on top of things only. Okay, so 5. In Scrum, there's this notion of transparency, or the team. Scrum is transparent, okay? And I would say one of the biggest aspects of this is about task status. Task status is kept visible at all times. How do you do this in Scrum? We'll talk about we have a Scrum board. We'll keep track of the tasks there. Everyone's status will be always available and viewable via the Scrum board. Some people have come to start to call these Kanban boards, but there's actually a difference between the way we build Kanban boards and we build Scrum boards. So we'll use our Scrum boards. Now, via this and this transparency, it's easy to see who is doing what. And this is for the whole team to see. Okay, this is not just for the Scrum Master. It's not like the Scrum Master keeps a small little spreadsheet and keeps track of who's doing what. No, this is a shared document. It's usually quite large and it's put on a wall with a big sheet of paper. In our case, we'll be setting it all up for remote work. We'll use Trello, but it's definitely, everyone gets to see what everyone is doing. And the other thing, because everything's so transparent, it's easy to estimate if work will be done on time. And to do this, we use our burn down charts. We'll go over what those are later. And because it's easy to figure out whether things are going to be done on time, this allows daily course corrections. Okay, now how are we going to end up making those daily course corrections? We're going to make those because via our, we meet every day in Scrum. So there is a daily Scrum, and for lots of teams, the daily Scrum is often in the form of a stand-up meeting. All right, so but the daily Scrum is a daily meeting. We'll talk about the details of it, but the idea is you hold it every single day at the same time. All right, it's a very consistent thing. And it's here, this allows us on a daily basis to inspect our progress. And so at the daily Scrum, we're going to update our Scrum board with people's current status on how are they doing with their tasks and the work. It also then allows us to adapt and produce the plan for the day. Every single day of work in Scrum has a new plan. And it comes out of this. This is about a 10 to 15 minute long meeting. Everyone comes out of it knowing what the current status is. And based upon what people talked about at the meeting, things are adapted and changed in the plan of what tasks need to be done and who's doing what. We have a plan for what we're going to do. Constant adaptation, okay? We constantly are going to look at ourselves, see how things are going, and change things to correct the course of action. The notion again being that planning is done every day. So unlike plan and document, big planning up front, waterfall, whatever we want to call it, it's not as though all the planning happened in the first third of the project and now we're going to continue on. No, every single day we're constantly looking at and adjusting and adapting our plan. And the goal of this is to avoid bottlenecks, downtime, etc. We're trying to adjust to what we learned from the previous day. And in particular, one of the things that can come out of that is that we can often have new tasks that are discovered. Now, these are not, we're not going to do new stories within a sprint. So the sprint backlog will contain the stories that we decided to work on for that sprint. From those stories, we'll figure out what all the tasks are that we need to do to complete them. But it's highly possible that the tasks that we currently believe that we have changed. Oh, we don't actually need to do that anymore. Or no, now I found a couple more things we hadn't thought about that we need to do to be able to get that story done. Likewise, let's say we're working on something and we discover bugs. Those bugs become new tasks and they're added to our Scrum board and we keep working on them. So this is absolutely something that changes, and this is one of the reasons we need to always be staying on top of it. And we do that with having a daily meeting. Seven, Scrum promotes and has a definition of done. All right, and we'll talk about the done criteria of the team. So another way to put this is the done criteria, not to be confused with acceptance criteria. So a lot of students make this mistake. Acceptance criteria is what the customer wants. Done criteria is a team internal definition. So definition of done is a team agreed level of quality. To be able to actually say that the work that you're doing is done. So we'll talk about our tasks. Okay, and examples of us talking about done criteria. So teams will often have things such as, well, it needs to have gone through a code review. All right, we need to have run tests, etc. And it's quite typical that as teams mature and become more skilled, that they work to increase the agreed definition of done. So they increase their notion of what it means to produce quality work. So a new team, not very experienced with much testing, might have a really minimal level of testing involved. But as that team develops its skills and learns more about how to test software, the expectation is the team will adopt a higher level of done criteria. Their definition of done will increase because, oh yeah, we all know about how to do proper automated testing now, and we know how to do that within the frameworks that we use. We expect us all to do that. Okay, so for us to say your work is done, we expect to see that work there, that testing level done. All right. Then a really big part of Scrum is that work is done in time-boxed sprints, 1 to 4 weeks in length. All right, most commonly is probably the 2-week sprint. 4 weeks is quite long. 1 week is pretty short and quite rapid. So, and we're going to use 2-week sprints in MSci 342. Time boxed means the work starts and ends no matter what within that time window. There's no flexibility at all. We pre-decide how long our sprint is, and then we work on what we've committed to do in the sprint backlog to get it done by the end of the sprint. There's a firm deadline at the end, and once that deadline has passed, the sprint is over, and we'll check and see how we actually did. Did we actually get everything done or not? So what does the overall process look like? So the overall process for Scrum, so those are the key things that are sort of make Scrum unique sort of the qualities of Scrum. The overall process diagram looks as follows. So Scrum, each iteration, so Scrum process, so this is each iteration, which is equal to each sprint. So we start off with sprint planning. So we hold a meeting in which we plan out what we're going to get done in the sprint. So this is the selection of the items for the sprint backlog. Estimates are made, acceptance criteria are worked upon. We start our discussions so that we really understand what it is that we've put into the sprint and what are we committing to get done. Then we begin work, all right? And we start with our daily stand-up or our daily scrum. We get some work done, and then the next day we hold another daily scrum, daily stand-up meeting. I'm inclined to call them stand-ups since that was in my experience in industries. I always had a stand-up meeting. All right. Then once we'll schedule just before the very end of the sprint, a sprint review. So the sprint review does not happen at the outside of the time box time. It happens within the time box time. We got to get it done before we're done. And the sprint review is where we show the work that we got done to the client. We take the client we show to the client the work that we have completed. So this is functioning software. We don't show partially completed work. We're always showing this is the completed work that we added to the software and we want to get your feedback, okay? Likewise, at the sprint review is a great time to go over the priorities for the product backlog. Well, okay, this is what we did. We got your feedback. You like this, you don't like this. Oh, you came up with these ideas. We can, maybe you'll have these things or you see these issues. But let's also take a look at the product backlog. What does the client actually think about the priority order, and get some more feedback on that. You can always go back to them after the sprint review as well. But then after the sprint review, before you're done with your sprint, you hold a sprint retrospective, often shortened to talking about doing the retro. So the retrospective is a team meeting with the team members themselves, where they go over and they examine how is their software process, how well did they work on this sprint. They look back at that sprint and they come up with a way that they think that in the next sprint they'll be able to improve their performance. So at every iteration, we can see that we're going to be doing this daily inspection and adaptation. But then even at the sprint level, we're going to be inspecting not only the product so we can adapt what our priorities and the work are in the backlog, but then we're going to inspect the team so that we can come up with new ways to improve the actual performance of the team. And then once the retrospective is done, we're ready for another sprint. And we started off again with sprint planning. All right, very good.